It has been 20 years since Superman Returns. And I thought about how could I honor Superman Returns and what can I say and what can I do? Um we've talked about the movie before, we reviewed the movie, we've done live watch, we've done commentary. Um if you haven't checked out my episode previously from last year where and you can hear my kids laughing and playing in the background. That's how excited they are for life. That Brandon Routh is his own Superman. I do not subscribe anymore to that the films are Donner follow ups. And if you have questions, just go listen to that episode and you'll hear what we have to say. With that noted, for this, Superman Returns may not be the best Superman, but there is a lot I like in it. And I like Brandon Routh as Superman. And it was definitely a big moment in my Superman fandom of getting to see Superman in a new film for the first time on the big screen. So what I decided this year to celebrate is to read the prequel comic. And the story by Bryan Singer, Michael Daugherty, and Dan Harris, of course, who were the team that wrote the Superman Returns script. The first thing I want to say is I think the cover is crap for the trade. I'm holding the trade, okay? I think the cover is garbage. It's Superman. It looks generic Superman holding the American flag, and it says Superman Returns, the prequels. In no way, shape, or form sells to me that this is Superman Returns tied to the film at all. For anyone who doesn't know, I saw the film 5 times in theaters. It just was a big part of my whole Superman fandom. And I would love to, be able to just take that moment again because it was so exciting. I still have the Superman Returns belt buckle, and I still wear it all the time because it's my favorite belt buckle of all time. And yeah, it holds a special place. But let's go ahead and discuss this whole thing, okay? The first issue of this series is pretty much garbage. I'm going to say it because it is basically the rehash with a little bit of extra detail about the final moments of Krypton covering Superman the movie, which, like I said, I don't subscribe to it being the same anymore, but this is just filler of what could have been something unique if it had actually been the first issue of them discovering that Krypton still exists. So honestly, if I bought this back in the day, I would be mad because that first issue is just filler. And it just really is covering the beats from the Superman the movie. Now, the issue that I think is the strongest is the second issue, which is the Martha Kent issue. And it's all narrated by her on the farm. It shows her going through her daily routine and talking about being alone and without her husband or Clark. She's looking at the papers and she talks about how she misses her son, how everyone called him all these different names, but she misses Clark Kent. She has little flashbacks of seeing Jonathan and Clark together. She's walking on the farm. We do get a little flashback of when he first lifted the truck, which is fine. Him with his super speed. Him discovering the crystal of who he is. Who am I, which is a great scene. So this is all very strong storytelling. Him, getting what he was wrapped in. We see Martha in the diner, and we have flashbacks to her and Clark in the diner about Pi, the day he decides to leave. And then the issue ends with his rocket returning, which is great because that, I feel like, is truly what we needed for this. Okay? The second issue is the Lex Luthor. And the best thing to come out of this is we see Lex in prison. He's talking. We get flashbacks. In the flashbacks, we see an Otis and Tessmacher and a very generic Superman. And I do know that in Superman Returns, the film, they do say, something about his suit, being new and everything. But to me, this is just generic Superman right here. Like, this really should be all about the Superman Returns logo, the suit, and everything to sell this story. It goes through Luthor talking about his land. This doesn't even look like anything with Gene Hackman style Luthor, his suit and everything. So this is, once again, feeds into my Brandon Routh as his own Superman. We do see a couple of the henchmen that Luthor will take out with him, but we do get the biggest part is Kitty Kowalski was the nurse at the hospital, and we see how Lex first met her and how he kind of seduced her and everything and got her to be on his side when he got out. So that is like the biggest thing, because she's the one that says there's someone you should write to, and that explains how Lex got connected with Gertrude. And when he was released, he met Gertrude, and he discusses how a man can reinvent himself, and that kind of sets him up. The next one is the Lois Lane, which is another one. Like, this is my number 2. So if I was ranking these that you need to read, I would go with Martha and Lois, and then Lex if you want to, because I feel like they actually tell the story. Lois' story is her juggling with that Superman is gone. It shows like the first night, referencing the film, her writing her articles with Superman, the times he saved her. A little bit more playful with Clark, and in this, there's actually lines that talk about her friend Clark being gone. So it actually makes it seem like her and Clark were actually friends at some point in time. We see where Perry's holding the newspaper. It says, "Is this Krypton?" And we see, Superman gone. We see Jimmy. Looks nothing like Sam Huntington Jimmy. We see how she meets Richard White and how they become friends, work together, and then eventually fall in love. And at the, there's a big announcement that's made at the Daily Planet Christmas party. And then the next thing you know, she's giving birth to Jason. And, one day he asks who's Superman. And she says, he was an old friend of Mommy's, Jason, but he's gone. It does muck up a little bit what the timeline is on everything. It shows her with a wedding ring, a band, typing. So that's an interesting point right there. We also see her going to light a cigarette and it blows out just from the wind, and she thinks it's Superman. But the whole point of this whole thing is her building up to writing why the world doesn't need Superman, because 5 years later. So that really helped, tell the story of where Lois is. So that's really the Superman Returns prequel comics. I was a little disappointed at taking this long to read them. The individual issue covers actually sell that they're Superman Returns prequel, but the trade doesn't. And I wish, honestly, with all the times they put Batman films back in movie theaters, I know we have Supergirl coming out and everything. It would be nice, like for Superman Day or something this year, they would have put Superman Returns back in theaters. That could have been really awesome to go see that in theaters. But, oh well.